I apologize for being late.
Mark, you tardy.
I switched some things around on this agenda in the order of stuff. It's a good suggestion from Marianne that we might want to look at. I hope it's okay with you, Joel.
If I stop talking, do I get to go home?
No. But it's a free country, so you can do what you need to do. So, welcome, everybody. Do we have everybody? No, we don't have Les.
Oh, sorry, Les is not coming. He sent me an email.
Okay.
Yes.
I guess we have everybody. All right.
Oh, the table's full.
Good. Welcome, Michael. Welcome, Barb. And I noticed Joel on the board for your select board meetings, you mentioned that we are being broadcast, so is that something that we should just say, or is that?
I think it's important to say it.
Okay. Greetings to the general public, whoever's out there. So, what I thought we might try, and this is subject to your change, is looking at some of these old business issues, especially things that we weren't able to act on if we wanted to act on them last week, but also to put the select board discussion of their meeting later on, because a lot of stuff sort of gets touched on anyway in our committee reports. So is there any change that anybody'd like to make in this agenda? Okay.
Would it be possible to send the agenda out by email before the meeting? I think that would be very helpful.
I can
know what
we
we
try
are
to do that.
anticipating.
I will try to do that.
I think we should add an item too to discuss other alternates.
Well, we're supposed to be making a pitch every week.
Okay.
Well, we would like to have some more alternates available for this committee. We did have a meeting a get-together last week, but it couldn't be an official meeting because we didn't have a quorum. So if we had a couple more alternates, folks in general want to sign up and be part of this process, fill in when somebody's absent, that would be great. Barb?
When the town was voting in February, last year everybody stood up front. Are you doing that again this year?
We haven't decided that yet, but there seems to be enough feeling that we're definitely going to discuss it and decide what to do. And would that be a factor in whether you decide to be an alternate or not?
No, not really. I was just thinking that a lot of people, I noticed a couple of years ago that in the voting part of it, checklist people didn't vote, put their hands up for whatever reasons, whatever. And I thought, that might be intimidating for some people.
Which is something Marge brought up a month ago. I thought that was
Actually, I think
interesting.
we have to do it by ballot or something, or by petition to have the budget end of it by ballot. If that's the only one we do, I think that's the most important. But that would have to be by petition.
I missed that.
I think that in the course of the meeting, somebody could
Right, that's
say they want a ballot on this question, and then it becomes a ballot question.
Or doesn't.
Well,
Or doesn't.
there's a certain amount of people that have to do it, right? 12, 3.
I
think we need six, I would say.
You need to convince the moderator that it's a terrific idea, or you have to meet the statutory requirement, which is very modest.
Right, it's not many, like
I
5.
thought it was like 6.
I don't think there's any point in guessing about what it is. It should be easy enough to figure it out. And maybe I'll just look right now.
I mean, I think the point is not that we necessarily sit up front, is that we all sit together. So that when I say, and we also do advisory budget,
It wasn't our choice.
It was our choice.
That was not our plan at all.
Well, we'll get to that question when the meeting is imminent. So, one of the list of things we talked about last week was capital reserve funds. I'm looking at the old business section here, capital reserve funds, including the question of should we ask for a warrant article to empty the new town hall, capital reserve fund, and other discussion about capital reserve fund. Do we want to go into any capital reserve fund discussion now? Is that fruitful, or should we consider that in connection with?
I kind of feel we need to figure out what the selectmen are going to do on the fund balance and then go forth from there. That number, if it changes a lot, will affect greatly the capital reserve accounts. Okay. But that's what I would recommend, wait till they set the.
I can't see where that makes a difference.
Sure it is.
Why?
Now, I like your tax to go.
No, as far as what's in the capital reserve fund for new town hall.
Oh, no, we're talking about capital reserve funds in general, not just the capital reserve.
All he's trying to talk about is unrestricted fund balance.
Okay, that's a different
Different kettle of fish.
That's a different kettle of fish.
But if you want to talk just strictly about the town hall,
Yeah, let's be specific in this case. That was an issue last time.
and I brought it up at the last meeting, before anybody's about it, whether or not we should revisit that, or urge the selectmen to possibly support that, or
How much money is involved?
67, well, 67, 40, 420, approximately, was mine.
And the last time around, it was to move that money into the capital reserve for the bridge, which seems to be a little bit more imminent than new town hall, since the old one's not falling down around our ears.
That part did pass, and they did move that $65,000 into the bridge fund.
Okay,
But the other one failed, so therefore it came out of our.
so there's still $60,000.
Correct.
All right.
The rule of unintended consequences.
Yeah, I knew it was going to be interesting.
Well, I mean, I, for one, am extremely opposed to getting rid of that new town hall capital reserve fund. We desperately need a new town hall. And when we had our meeting over there, and people said, I hope this is the last time we're ever going to meet here because the floor is so noisy, kind of thing. And then suggested going to another town to have their town meeting. And I have a real problem with going to another town to have our town meeting. We should be able to do it here. Also, while I'm on it, we should be able to have lovely weddings and gatherings in our own town, and we don't because our town hall is falling down around our ears. Not quite, but almost. And so I personally am extremely opposed to that. I'm somebody who thinks we desperately need a town hall that we, as a town, can be proud of and use on again and again and again and again. Many times a year.
Should have the little marbles sitting over here.
Well,
I mean, you're probably one of the few people at this table that remember that.
I don't actually. It died. It
Oh.
died the year I was born. I was only a few months old when it burned down. But I.
Better know him for that.
Well, I admit that the current building's a piece of junk. But what level of use does it get? What level of potential use?
Well, I think it goes beyond that too, that, you talk about building new buildings, but if we're not gonna maintain the buildings that we have, what's the sense of building something else that's just gonna rot? And that's kind of what it amounts to.
Unfortunately, there is that point, except that we don't use that building because it's so awful. And I mean, it's just, Alstead's all going to Walpole's Town Hall to have all their weddings. And I mean, if we had a nice town hall, just like Walpole, we'd be renting it out every week.
I think there was some talk about looking into whether we could repurpose the funds, those $65,000, and make repairs that would improve the current town hall in any way.
The answer to that is probably. I sought legal advice from LGC, and they said, It didn't sound like it was going to be a big deal to get it more definitive. So one of the questions that Matt Saxton impression that he asked, if the only thing you hate about the gym at Gladys for town hall is the floor, let's see what it costs to fix that.
Which, right,
I would be proud to call that a town hall.
Yeah.
It's the most gorgeous building in the school district.
that's a fabulous place.
Even if his stupid wireless mic never worked. It's just a heads up. We'll be asking her later.
Right. But again, but how often would it be actually available for town activities because it's so busy with school activities? So the answer is yes, it's lovely. I mean, it can hold the town for town meetings. I agree with all of that. But how often is it available for everything else that,
Well, it's the only building in town that has reasonable parking for large gatherings. Certainly the existing town hall has horrible parking,
You're absolutely right on that.
almost none.
So is this something that we want to continue to discuss tonight, or is it something we want to put on our list to be prepared for maybe a warrant article or something like that for the warrant, but not get bogged down in it? Because I'm sure that the opinions that you have and a lot of other people in town probably have, and there's probably some strong opposed to that, so.
I know there are good opposition to it.
Do we as a committee tonight want to
We don't know enough.
If, as Joel suggested, money were put into the floor in the gymnasium for our meetings, how much is that going to cost?
Well, actually, I've asked Bill Body, which is the maintenance director there at Fall Mountain, to hopefully put new windows in. We have about $170,000 somewhere in that area in our capital reserve for the school. And the money would come out of that, and also we have enough money into that to replace the floor. Now, these are the old numbers, and of course those numbers have to be updated. So, it could be a very good fix. And this is what we've been talking about in the meetings up there at the school, doing that type of stuff.
So we might have $65,000 to play with.
Absolutely.
What fun.
maybe the school district will pay for the floor.
We can put some of that money here in the hill and put a parking lot.
So the
Right
windows
after the
in
site type.
the windows in the school or in the gym?
In the gym.
In the gym.
Yeah, because basically it's a wind tunnel. If you stand next to it on a cold day, you get frostbite.
So you're saying we have enough money in the school,
By the old-
CRF,
Yeah.
to do both the floors and the windows?
And by the old numbers, and I've asked Bill Body to look into it, and still get some prices together, and possibly put out a warrant article, which would be on the school ballot, not the town ballot.
Probably only voted on in this town.
Correct. That's exactly it. It won't be
That's
voted
what
on
I said,
this town.
since we're paying 100% of the bill.
Well, we could sweeten the argument with some money from the capital reserve for the new town hall.
Yes.
That might make a difference.
So your observation that we don't know enough now, what do we need to do to know enough to act on this in the future?
How much is it going to cost?
For the windows on the floor.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll get a hold of them and put those numbers together.
Okay, great, thanks. Other capital reserve discussion at this point?
I had just another point. Somebody said something about, we don't always know that we can use the gym for town purposes. So, is there some way we can address that?
There's a reservation process. It's online. We've used it successfully. The first time was not pretty.
Sure.
But let's remember who owns that building.
And if we own a piece of the floor,
So,
Yeah, I mean,
I
is there
think
some way?
I think the argument about utility is not necessary to resolve, because I think going forward is simply a negotiation. If we want it, we reserve the building for the deliberative session without any pushback from anybody. As long as we didn't do it a week before, which is what I tried to do a couple of years ago, that didn't work so well.
Right. And really, it's to be quite a ways before, because the athletics do their things a year ahead of time, do they not?
It's all available to look at any moment. So I think it'd be fairly easy to find the time for that wedding in June or July.
Which, so romantic.
Too much trouble.
No,
And they can put crepe paper on the
Yeah, you can
on
do
the
a prom
hoops.
thing, yeah.
Yeah.
We have $176,823 in that account.
186?
176,823.
The school has that.
The school has that, but only the town can vote to use that.
Basically, it's our money in their
Correct.
custody.
Yeah. Well, actually, no, it's actually part of our capital reserve.
So it's our money, period.
Right. It's part of that investment firm that's taking care of that.
Okay.
So there's $64,200 in the town's capital reserve fund
For the,
at the moment, which was founded in 2009.
You got a couple of $100,000 loose.
Not everyone is as anxious to spend that money as
If you don't spend money, you might as well not have it.
there you go.
All right, speaking of spending money,
Aha!
$12,000 was voted in the budget, or there's a remainder of $12,000 of the $12,000 that was included in last year's, or the current year's budget for raises. We did discuss that a little bit last time some of us were together, but is that something we want to act on tonight? Should we be,
Joel was supposed to ask the other selectmen about raises for the people that haven't gotten them.
I think that the select board would generally support this. My charge is to compare the data generated by the HR committee most recently. 7 towns of a similar size to the wages and benefits that we're paying at the moment. And once I've answered those questions, I think the expenditure plan will irrigate itself.
Right, but I was thinking, right?
go ahead.
I was thinking fair, if other people got raises, and there's a couple people that got the little weenie raise and were promised a better raise after this whole HR thing was done, that doesn't seem fair. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do, but it's not my argument. I am somewhat disappointed that HR didn't make recommendations, but I think they've given me all I need to come up with them on my own. We had all hoped, every project we've ever taken on, we all hoped it moved more quickly. And what we had intended in January was for the first round of employee evaluations to have been done by now. So that's not going to happen. Priscilla's going to make it happen, but she can't work that fast.
I have a question. If all the town employees are going to have job descriptions and evaluations based on those descriptions, does that extend to the members of the select board?
There's a statutory definition of the select board position, which probably is not malleable locally. And the evaluation occurs every March in the valley.
I see. So, but we're expecting our employees to do their own evaluations, in effect.
No,
Did I misunderstand that form they were supposed to all fill out?
they're certainly expected to offer comments about where they think they are and where they think they want to go, which is the one I'm really interested in. But no, we expect their department heads to do their evaluations.
So do you know who hasn't gotten their entire raise that was in that chunk of money?
Can't bring that data to this table tonight, no.
Okay,
Research.
because I asked Chris today, you know.
Can I ask a question too? Is it appropriate for us to be talking about specific people's wages in an open session?
Well, we're not yet.
No, but, I mean, is that public information?
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
It's all put out on the board.
Okay.
It's published every 2 weeks.
We cannot talk about evaluations.
We can't say whether they deserve a raise or not. We can only say they get this much.
You can say whatever you want. I don't think there's a great horde of litigants gathering in the parking lot. I think good manners and small town reticence would rule that we didn't mention names or in this discussion, but that's for you to decide on your own.
Do you need anything from this committee tonight in terms of going ahead with what you've been talking about, figuring out how much?
Hey, let me answer that question with a question. What I came away with last week was that what fragment of this committee was in the room believed that the voters had spoken in March, and that money, if it could be rationally awarded, should be spent in 2015. If that's the sense of this committee, it's certainly the sense of the select board.
Then I would propose a motion that we encourage the select board to proceed to disperse this money as intended for salary increases for town employees that qualify.
For my purposes, it's just sufficient to have this conversation and see all these heads bobbing up and down if you feel something stronger is required. And whereas it's in wherefore.
No whereas, it just puts it on the table.
All right. There's a motion on the table.
I second it.
Second. Any more discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Okay, thank you. One thing we considered was if we should encourage a budget line to go into the budget for 2016 for a town manager. Is that something we want to get into tonight or for this current budget?
I'd like to do a lot more research on that before I want to vote. I tell you, if it came up tonight, I would abstain because I just don't feel I have enough
Where is the
knowledge.
select board with that item in terms of talking to the other town manager? I forget what town it was.
Yeah, I think we're functionally in the same boat that Juliana is. We're quite sure we don't know enough. Don't have any immediate appetite for research, which sort of begs the question of putting it on the warrant. There's two reasons to switch to a town manager structure of government. One is that we can demonstrate that it's cheaper. And the other, which is much easier to demonstrate, is that the selectmen are doing a crappy job. Well, I'm not kidding. Why else would you bother? If we can't keep up with the work, which is easy to demonstrate, then something needs to change. Get better selectmen or change the staff in some way.
Yeah. I'm a little unclear. If we get a town manager, does that replace the select board? Or is it in addition to the select
It's
board?
another salary.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Why does the selectman still have to be paid if there's a town manager running the show? Most town, okay, so,
But you think you can buy a really good professional town manager for $9,000?
not at all. Not at all. But I wouldn't say,
That's the context.
the way you said the other salary made it sound like it was on top of the select board.
Let me give you some history that's not in dispute.
What about another employee for the road department?
The HR people were surprisingly quite, I think, unanimous or nearly so in their recommendation that the town move toward town manager, town administrator. Town manager means something in statute, and I'm not even sure what that is yet, but the town administrator sort of structure that essentially installed a senior bureaucrat to provide frontline supervision for all of the departments, which is surprising to hear that.
Something that should be voted on by the people?
Well, ultimately, everything we do that involves spending money is in fact voted on by the people. And so, yes, whether there were a standalone warrant article, see, again, this is a research piece, because there are places like Vermont is one of them where the town manager is actually a political position, often appointed, but sometimes elected. And I hadn't heard anybody clamoring for that, and I don't even know if that's legal in New Hampshire. So I've done my homework.
Sounds to me like homework. So,
I think it would be a good idea to look into this further somehow. Is there anyone in on the current committee who's willing to continue? I know.
On the HR committee?
Yeah, it's actually the CBEC committee. They don't call themselves the HR committee.
Everybody else does? What do they call themselves?
CBEC,
What does that mean?
Compensation Benefits Evaluation Committee.
Not town manager committee.
Joel, is there anyone from that committee who's willing to continue work?
I can't speak for any of them.
Because I think what we need to do is to start with the job descriptions for the select board as well as our current, town, whatever her name is, whatever her title is, Linda. Administrative assistant, and then, Kelly, what's Kelly doing? I think we need to get a handle, on all of this, what's Hans doing? And write job descriptions for all of these people, so then we can make a case that we actually need someone to do stuff.
are you volunteering and stuff?
I have,
Already
actually,
have.
yeah. But I'm not sure that this is a great time for the town offices to be disturbed with this kind of activity.
Well, two things in that regard. First of all, I think Tom Dowling specifically said he wanted a divorce. He'd love you all, but I want a divorce when he made his presentation. So I think that pretty much says where they're at. And I think we also voted, and it's on the punch list, an action plan must be developed to systematically review and implement the suggestions contained within their report. Through the budget timeline, emphasis should be placed on, first thing, exploring the need for a town administrator/manager. The second thing, job descriptions for all employees. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is, it seems to me that they mentioned somebody in there that you just kind of seemed to me, brushed off, Joel, was that there was a guy in another town who Chris Reitman had said we would contact and have him come in, and he was adamant that it needed to be the 3 selectmen that talked to him, not any kind of other group. And you and I just talked about that Saturday, I think, too. And so, the question is, again, where is that at? We've got this punch list, and it seems like it's getting longer, and things on it aren't getting resolved, and I think it needs to be got a priority category that hasn't been filled in as well. So,
I think in this case, the selectmen have by default set their priorities on budget making for the last quarter of the year. I don't feel any tremendous urgency, can't speak for my brother selectmen, to get this particular recommendation implemented onto the warrant in 2016. I believe that considerably more study is required on my part, at least. My first pass through the RSAs indicates there is in fact a statutory difference in New Hampshire between manager and administrator. The chapter you all want to read is 37. That's just the tip of the iceberg. I completely agree with you that anybody willing to submit to an interview by the selectman who's held this position for more than 20 months would be a valuable resource. I think it might be premature for me to interview that person.
I'm not talking about interviewing, I'm talking about having a conversation with them. If you offer to come talk to the town about how they do it in the town where the person is. And perhaps it's in that report where the person's name is that volunteered to do this.
It is.
Honestly.
Yeah, I think that when we're considering a big upheaval event like hiring a town manager, we should keep in mind that in the next 2 years, we're going to be losing the 2 senior people in the Department of Public Works and 2 people in the office, 2 senior people in the office. And the idea of having a whole bunch of inexperienced people with a totally inexperienced town manager really fills my heart with dread.
That's the guy.
And I think that we should take that into
You could look at it
account.
from a couple of perspectives. You could have totally inexperienced selectmen running the show.
Don't we?
So, what's the difference? And I think we're making an assumption that whoever, if we
Well-
were to hire someone, that they've been experienced.
They-
So-
I think that the fact that we do in fact have 2 out of the 3 selectmen who were totally inexperienced speaks to the fact that we should be very wary of having tons of inexperienced people running the town.
No, I don't share that word.
My-
Maybe the town needs a new broom.
Well, I'm just thinking that town managers have done it before. It's not like they've never been a town manager. They've been a town manager somewhere.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Well,
But they have
true,
some
but-
type of experience.
yeah, I would hire somebody that,
Considering that it's been over a year and we still don't have a police chief hired, how long is it going to take us to hire a town manager? Maybe I should
Well,
worry, it could take 10
What do we
years.
want to do with this topic tonight?
I think there are 2 possibilities. We could appoint subcommittees that we issue, or the selectmen could do so if they were so inclined.
Another committee.
Of course, it's another committee. It's a considerable amount of effort would be required to do properly. And I don't think it's something we all want to do individually.
So,
I think, given the amount of difficulty we had communicating with the HR committee, we should try to appoint one from our own ranks again.
I think we should do it ourselves.
Oh, Joy.
so are we at the point of creating that committee now?
How does how we run the town come under the auspices of the committee?
The salary of the town manager.
The salary, but what else?
I think we'll do any damn thing we please.
Well, I agree. I'm not sure we should. I mean, where do we draw the line in terms of
Well,
how much
certainly,
we're taking
you
on?
could certainly argue this has lots of implications for how the town spends its money and whether it spends it wisely or carelessly and how much. So I think it certainly is,
I think it's
touches on lots of things that we're concerned about, but
do we want to purview?
do we want to make that committee?
Does anybody want to do it besides Priscilla?
Not until we use.
wait a minute, I didn't hear, I thought Priscilla just said I would do it.
Yes, I'll do it. I said I would do the job descriptions.
Which I don't, didn't anybody else think they were gonna be in here? In the report? I made an assumption, I guess.
Yeah, fair.
I thought,
No, there's sample ones.
the sample ones.
Oh.
I thought we were gonna get a,
Oh, no,
There
they
you
were,
go.
no, they were only doing the sample ones.
I didn't catch that. Okay.
Okay, so, do you want to create a committee, Priscilla, on this topic? Or do you want to wait, like, take it down the road to a...
When I'm having so much fun, you guys will be begging me. I can just see it now.
Doesn't mean you can get off the air.
I'll let you wait, I'll let you cool. We'll discuss that. No. I'll start, I'll see how far we get.
All right.
Chris, the only thing with the HR committee is that we have a lot of, people that have worked in this town for a long time, old school, and when they approached some of the managers or head people in their department, they didn't get much response from them. They got yes, no, they had no input from them. It's hard for them to have change. And I think, for the highway department, change right now is very difficult.
Well, just wait, because they're retiring within the next 2 years, the
Well, we
two
don't
top
know
guys.
that for a fact, though.
Yeah.
So do you think that
Getting to retirement.
another committee might have similar difficulty then?
I think that's why it was very difficult. They did examples there because there wasn't much input. They wanted input from the heads, and they didn't really, they just gave up and just said, well, we'll give samples, and then you can pick from that. And maybe somebody would have better luck sitting down with them and saying, is this appropriate for this person? Is that? But I think there's a lot going on and a lot being asked of these people, and it's just like, we never had to do this before, and all of a sudden.
I agree, and I think particularly when a department is familiar with the staff that they've had for years and they know what this guy does, and they know what he can't do. They don't necessarily want to have to classify that guy as, a heavy equipment operator or light equipment operator.
And I think David's
So-
great work with it. I don't think he's a paper person. And I don't know how else to put that other than, I don't think he's the type of person that would sit and do, I know my man, I know this, it's just, it's change.
All in a rush.
Yes.
Question for Joel. If there is a committee formed, will that committee be allowed to talk to the gentleman who's the town manager from the other town who volunteered to talk to?
Russ Bowman.
Cool. So it doesn't have to be the select board then?
Lauren Burrow.
Lineborough.
You sure you pronounced that right? Sorry.
Built a house there.
So do you want to have a motion to create this committee, or should we just leave it in Priscilla's hands to start exploring and keep us informed? And ask for help from others when she needs? How do you want to do this?
Well, Priscilla's willing to do some research and then come back and say, listen, I really need, one more person to whatever, or two more people. Then that would be great, as none of us are saying, pick me, pick me. But I don't know if she's willing, that's a lot to put on your
I'm gonna,
shoulders.
I'm gonna work with this guy.
Okay.
And,
I already agreed.
and if he doesn't open the doors for me, I'll figure out what to do.
What's his last name again?
Volan.
Thank you.
854-5955, extension 223.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Priscilla.
It is warm now.
There's 77 in here on Monday.
The line-by-line review of the budget, one of the suggestions was that we take that on ourselves and break it up into reasonable bites.
In a sense, haven't we been doing that with our departments that have been meeting?
Priscilla noted last week that she didn't feel she had an overall grasp of the budget. And so we talked about once a month going through the entire budget line by line. And then I thought, oh my God, this would be the meeting nobody wants to show up for because it's big forever. So why don't we?
I can predict an ailment.
And then divide up how many pages in the budget by how many Wednesdays in the month, and then do that many pages right off the get-go when we're all fairly bright.
Part of me says we should do that as part of the budget committee, and part of me says that's the select board's job.
But they haven't done it.
Okay, where do you draw the line?
But I think they are doing it when they're meeting with them.
I mean, rather than, shouting the same old song, it's just, I don't know.
I guess what really caught my eye was something that Glenn sent around, which he was projecting, I think, the expenditures through the end of the year, and we were going to be $200,000 underspent. And I remember last year there were a lot of people who were very concerned about the fact that we hadn't spent up to the budget.
But we can't spend up to the budget. We have to be under budget by what, about 10% if I RSA?
By $1.
That's all, just by $1? Okay, I thought it was 5%.
Well, DRA, I think, has some guidelines in those directions, but it's not statutory.
They'd like to see us keep, I think everybody's right here. DRA recommends that we keep 8 to 17% in reserve. We've been using it as a 5 for about 15 years. We haven't tripped over anything catastrophic, even in 2005. But we had plenty of help in that year. That's not a particularly good test. So, yeah, 5% of operating.
Which is, how much is that one?
It's
Well,
$1.5 million.
Yeah, that's it's harder to answer that question without digging a little deeper. The net operating for this year is going to be 840. That is net means expenditures minus revenue. That's part of what I've been working on this week. Trying to set the tax rates, which we're going to do a week from yesterday at a public meeting. We did a primer last night. Tax school. Had some success.
So that is scheduled for next Tuesday.
Yes. We have a busy agenda next Tuesday, but the tax rate must be set.
Big question on the tax rate, the county and the school, do they get set now too? Or is that
That's
fixed?
already been done.
Okay. So with that email that you sent out then, we should be able to predict what our taxes would be based on that.
As long as,
Well, right.
if everything stays the way it is.
That tax rate,
Just take what your reevaluation is, multiply it out.
right, so there shouldn't be any issue over the stuff, that's what I wanted to know.
But is there sentiment on the select board to use the
Fund balance.
Fund balance.
the fund balance to lower the tax rate?
We sure talked about it a lot, but I don't think a consensus has emerged. Which is part of the reason I'm forcing this into the public realm. It would be better for the town over the midterm if we had something articulated roughly as it can't be a policy that binds the future select boards, but it can be a sense of the voters that this is the way we like to see things done. We like to use some of the fund balance to stabilize the tax rate, not necessarily lower it, let's use the word stabilize. And we like to use most of it to fund either capital reserve funds or particular warrant articles going forward. That's been our history. But because that history has involved so few people, and so few people actually understand the little math exercise you have to go through to get to the end, I decided to force it into the public realm. And I think we did okay last night. We got through to some people. It's not as simple as it could be, but it is the result of 275 years of study and practice. It's about as good as it's going to get.
Could this be addressed in our quarterly report? To some extent?
I think you said it all when you sent out that card that said back to Hank.
No, I mean, nuances, I'm sure, are unfamiliar to the majority of the voters.
My struggle is always the same one, though. The nuances are not helpful in the discussion. We need to do a better job of presenting the big concept,
Bang, bang,
either
bang.
short declarative sentences, a few syllables, rather than I get carried away with these spreadsheets. It's real easy for me to fall into this rabbit hole and get excited about it. Start trying to communicate to people whose eyes roll back
No, I hate
in their
spreadsheets.
head.
I was just thinking